Sauce is the key. We flavored it perfect to help you in life and business. So let's get the cooking out in the scene and whip up some.
I think we're like doing a dance party here, Andrew.
That's
our theme song right
there. I love our
network guy to help your business grow. Sauce is the key. We cooking it.
I'm going to fade that out now. Okay, so listen, welcome, everybody. We are going to do this live this time, and I think we might try to do this once in a while so that if you have questions, comments, raving criticisms, if you want to comment on my hair or Andrew's lack of it, you've got the opportunity. Andrew, how's it going?
Really good. Life is good.
You got some new business, and as I was saying, man, we've been blowing up over here at the Process Fixer. It's I don't know. We've got some other proposals out. If you're listening and you have a proposal with us right now, you better get signed this week because I don't know if we're taking on anybody new. You know, we added 3 more people and filled that capacity pretty quickly.
Yeah, that sucks. Those go into the category of problems, but good problems.
Oh, that's the best problem to have is to have too much business. And listen, I think, it goes into what we want to talk about today. And that is that I believe that as we are seeing margin erosion across the board for numbers of different reasons, and that could be a deterioration in sales, it could be an increase in cost of goods, or let's just be honest, an increase in labor like we've never seen before. Companies are dealing with margin deterioration. And that means that they've got to get by with less. And that, that a lot of times means that consultants tend to step in and try to help to streamline things. So that's good for our business. And let's talk a little bit about that, because if you don't have SOPs, if you don't know how the sausage is made, you're probably in for a rude awakening as margins continue to deteriorate.
Look, I mean, efficiency has a direct effect to the bottom line. It's a duh. But what I have found, because I do consult to small businesses and medium size, is that most small businesses don't value it in their mind, but they don't put it before sales, technology, a whole bunch of other things. Well, I need more sales, so I got to invest in that. And then they jump into social media and then Google ads, and then they jump into technology and how that can make them more efficient. But what good is the technology if you don't have your processes, swim lanes, all of that worked out? Oh. And a lot of smaller businesses are so busy. And this is where I'm interested in hearing your feedback.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses are so busy, they don't know how to make the time to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah, it's a capacity problem, right? It is a problem with capacity. And listen, I'm going to go share this. And actually, Andrew, I don't know if you want to do this as well. I realized that I can actually share this on my personal Facebook. So I'm going and doing that right now so that we can grab even a bigger audience. So we I don't know if you want to do that, Andrew. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So let's talk about this in particular, because I think it is a really, really good point that one of the biggest challenges that we have when it comes to our businesses is that we have this sort of firm belief that if we just put more sales in, everything would resolve itself. And that is actually not the case. Number one, you want to make sure you have the right type of customer that comes in, right? Because you don't want to have customers that have that are asymmetrical to what your standard, organization can handle. That's a big problem. And then secondarily, and that's sort of the easiest fix for most people, because they just outsource it to somebody else, or they just do more social media, or they hire a marketing agency. They do these other things to try to get more into the pipeline. But the real problem is lack of capacity. So when you look at your calendar for the day, and listen, I'm as a victim to this as everybody else. I had somebody say to me, "Hey, can I get 15 minutes on your calendar this week?" I'm like, "You can get 15 minutes on my calendar on the 6th of July. Like, that's the next available date." So if I don't have capacity, how can I ever spend time internally trying to improve, develop, or refine the systems and make them more efficient? And that's really what we're talking about here.
100%. And I just don't understand why most small business owners don't get the help they need to figure out how to get the capacity to how to do that.
Damn straight. I mean, but it's hard. So listen, you have to look at your calendar and you have to ask yourself a couple different questions. Unless we want to talk about SOPs and process here today, but I think the first and foremost, most important thing, and it's something that I'm very good at, and I still would consider myself inadequate, and that is highest and best use of your time. If you are worth $1,000 an hour and you are doing tasks that someone else will do for $250 an hour, you're a loser. You've just lost $750.
You know, I'm going to pause you right there, because something that I do with every company that I go in and every person that I sit down with, you know, I deal with a lot of organizational behavior, as well as leadership and team behavior. And I ask everybody this question: if the company was alive, like a living, breathing being, and it could talk, and now I'm the company, and I ask you, Derek, of all the things you do for me over the course of a day, a week, a month, a year, it's this particular one thing I get by far the most out of you. What is that? And you would be shocked how very few companies actually take an initiative to figure that out per person.
Totally.
And so, yes, you hit it right on the head.
Let me see if I can find it. We use a little app someplace. Let me see where it is. We actually use a Google Calendar app here at the Process Fixer that actually breaks down for you how many hours a day you spend in meetings. Are these recurring? Who are the people that you meet with the most often? How much time you spend in meetings? And then we put in our hourly rate for those people, and it tells us what that meeting costs. So I was recently in an executive meeting, a leadership meeting for a relatively big organization, maybe around $1 billion. And I asked this question. I said, what does this meeting cost? And they were like, well, we're meeting in our own conference room, and there's not really. I'm like, no. But what is this? This meeting costs $50,000 to $100,000 an hour to run it. If you think about what the value of all of these people that are in this room and what they're not doing, what their time is worth, all of these kind of things. So we have to quantify that. You have to be able to understand. You need to know, when you spend 20 minutes on TikTok, what did it cost you? I know exactly what it cost me. It cost me $335 because I look at myself as $1,000 an hour asset. So if I spent 20 minutes on TikTok, $335, that's what I paid. And I think it would be different if there was a paywall. If when I opened the TikTok app and it said, enter your American Express number, $335, I might say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to spend my time or money doing that. So we have to do that same thing with every task that we do in our organization. Back when I did coaching, the first thing I did with every CEO I worked with is I said, let's create a not to do list. What is the list of items that you are, from here on out, are never permitted to do ever again? Because many times we do this. It's like, but it only takes me 10 minutes. Okay, well, what did that 10 minutes cost? Cost $100, and somebody else could have done it for 35. I talked to a client earlier this morning that's coming back on board and doing some work with us. We did a project with them last year. They had somebody who just sat there and like scraped data from the internet, put it into, and then literally put it into their CRM. So we found somebody on Fiverr for $35 a month that would do it all for them and automatically put it all into the CRM. It's like, why the hell will you not do that? Because we don't want to stop and take the time to go find those areas where we need efficiency in the process.
100%. And I really think that it's two things. It's an awareness thing, and then there's a resistance once there's awareness, you know, because I think there's comfort for so many people in routine. You know, well, look, I've always done it, you know, but
it's what I do. It's my job, right?
Right.
So that, which is a cop out, right? Because, you know, ask yourself, what would I do if I didn't take care of this little mundane task? Well, you would do things that are more valuable. Or maybe you wouldn't work 60 hours a week. Maybe you would work 50 hours a week and you'd have more time with your family. Is that a bad thing? Or you'd have more time to do innovation or R&D or whatever it might be. Time is it's the most valuable commodity we have. And it's the only thing that we have that does not replenish. That money replenishes, time does not replenish. So time is way more valuable than money. And it's critically important for you to understand how time works in your organization.
And while I think that registers in people's minds exactly what you just said, what they don't know how to do is transition to that behaviorally.
Yes.
And that is really where rubber hits the road, because you can present all the logic in the world, but ultimately where rubber hits the road in most organizations is taking that new strategy, that new initiative, and how to incorporate that behaviorally into your behavior, your team's behavior, and your organizational behavior. And that's something that I do. I love doing it. And most consultants actually don't do that. They're very good at strategy and all the other things, but not the behavior. So exactly what you said is, you're creating, a cut and dry case for people to do this, but where the disconnect happens is they try it, but then they go back to their old way because they don't have somebody keeping them accountable to that behavioral change.
And listen, if you don't have, and there is a process to this, you have to be self-reflective, and a lot of people are not self-reflective. So in order to accomplish this task, in order to find capacity, in order to find time on your schedule, what you actually have to do is you have to stop and you have to lay all this out. You have to understand inputs, throughputs, outputs, and outcomes. You have to understand each task that you do, exactly how much time it takes to do that task. And then you have to ask yourself, is there a way to improve the efficiency on that? How do you improve the efficiency? Well, the best way to improve efficiency on any task is not to do it. Have somebody else do it or eliminate it completely. And this happens all the time with data redundancy. And I posted something the other day on LinkedIn, and I think it said, you can tell companies that are going to be in serious trouble in the next year if you ask this simple question. Andrew, is there anything in your business where you enter the same information twice? If there is, I predict you're going to have a really rough time starting about next year, because process efficiency is so important right now. Because in this era where AI is becoming integrated into our businesses, AI needs structured data in order to succeed. And if you have divergent systems, you're in serious trouble. And you have to start thinking about this right now.
Hallelujah.
So how do you determine that? Well, you've got to lay it out. Get sticky notes. Go up against a wall. What are the tasks that I do each day? Well, I check my email. I look through this. I read this. I pull this report. I check this. And then break that down into steps. What are the exact steps I take to pull that report? So many times, Andrew, it shocks me how often I find things like somebody says, well, we have to manually enter this data into the accounting system. And then we literally are on Zoom with them. And I say, well, what about the import button over there on the right side? And they go, oh, I don't think that worked. And they click it and they go, oh, hold on. Yeah. And then they and they're like, well, shit, that just saved me 20 minutes a day. It's because we're in that groove, right? We're
habit. We are creatures of habit, hence the behavioral change. And look it up in Google. There's plenty of statistics that prove that we alone by ourselves are not good creatures at changing our behavior. We usually need help in changing our behavior, a coach, a mentor, somebody, an accountability partner, whatever it is, that we need that help. And I guarantee you, Derek, these people are not getting that help. They're not.
No, they're not. And listen, it's hard help to find because not a lot of people are systems thinkers. Not a lot of people are critical thinkers. Not a lot of people will dissect to the point you need to dissect in order to understand this thing. I think everybody's probably heard me say in the past, I used to do some consulting for a big box retailer. And one of the things that impressed me so much about them was if I was to ask any person in leadership, what's your labor cost per second for this department? They could literally spit it out like it was something that it was their date of birth. What's your labor cost per second for your cashiers here in this role? Oh, my labor cost per second, $17,000 per second. Great. When's the last time you analyzed that and tried to find ways to shave a second off? Because a second is $17,000, not in revenue, in bottom line profitability that goes into the pocket of the stakeholders and shareholders. And I think if we understood that, if we truly understood how much money we waste, we would be reluctant to waste it anymore.
You're preaching to the choir, man. I mean,
listen, if you're watching this, if you got a comment, a question, an insult, throw it out there. Put it in the comments.
I don't do what you do. I hire people.
Not many people do.
I work.
Not many people do because it's hard.
People that do what you do bring me in to create the behavioral, the organizational change to that initiative. And people think that they don't need to do that. And unfortunately, they're sorely mistaken, because a consultant can break it all down for you, give it all to you. Here's the strategy, and look it up. The numbers aren't good. I think it's less than 50% of all strategy that is devised is actually delivered upon.
It's not. It's less than that. Gardner says it's 34% of projects that require a change in behavior get the expected result. 34%. So, and there's some really simple things that you can do to improve upon that. One, I think you've got to be self-reflective. You know the story with Fat Scooters and with the work that I did there. I was there not in an operations role for a very, very long time. And when I assumed the operations role and I walked out onto the manufacturing floor, I was just stunned. I walked through it. I walked investors through it every day in my president hat, where I'm trying to raise funds and I'm trying to talk about the positives of the organization. But then when I put my COO hat on and I walked out the door and I asked this question, why, over and over and over. Wait, why are we crawling around on the floor? Oh, we don't have motorcycle lifts. Why don't we have motorcycle lifts? I don't know. Well, okay. Well, maybe we need to get motorcycle lifts, right? It's like the simplest things are very hard to see when you're not looking at them. We are not good at multitasking. We're also not good at multidimensional thinking. We're not good at what I call 365 thinking. And we talk about this with our clients all the time. We have to not just look at the problem. We have to look at it from every perspective. See, you have a perception as an individual, but that is not a perspective. That is one perspective. Perspectives are in every dimension simultaneously. So when somebody says, well, this is my perspective on it, it's not. That's their perception. The reality of the situation is always quite different. And I literally have this happen all the time, where executives will tell me, this is what the problem is. I just sent a proposal out last night and I said, here's the 3 problems that you identified. But if I turn over a rock and there's $1 million laying there, we're not walking away from it, right?
Oh,
These ancillary opportunities. All the time. I mean, every day.
That happens all the time. They bring me in for something that they perceive is the problem. And then I say, okay, that is part of the problem, but you have this problem as well, or this other one that I'll never be able to execute on the one that you perceive as the problem, because this needs to be fixed first. Totally. That they didn't really even perceive that. So let me ask you, Derek. You're a small business owner. How do you, let's break it down into components. And they want to become more efficient. They get everything that we just discussed. We just spent, 15, 20 minutes explaining all the reasons why you need to do this. How do you go about, what does a person do to go about doing this?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that you have to do as an executive, not talking about your business right now, but you as an executive, I have a developing friendship with a really amazing lady who is a chief of staff to she's been a chief of staff to world leaders, right? And she says the first thing that you do as a chief of staff is you do a calendar audit. You look at their calendar, you figure out where they're spending their time. And then you ask a lot of questions. Well, I see that each day you run out for lunch. Tell me about that. How much time does that take? How far do you drive? How many minutes do we accommodate that? Would it be easier for us to have, Uber Eats bring you food every day? Oh, no, I'm not spending that $5 delivery fee. Oh, okay. So you instead will spend 45 minutes of your $1,000 an hour value to go do and the funny thing about the calendar audit is that like, it's one of those duh moments where you just keep hitting yourself in the head going, am I an idiot? Like, how did I not think about this? But you've got to have that calendar audit, and you honestly can't do it. Somebody else has to do it with you and for you and break it down and say to you, Andrew, why are you spending this amount of time doing this? What are you doing this? And listen, there's a valid reason to say, sometimes I just need to clear my head. Totally. I had an executive I worked with years ago, 1:15 every day, he took a nap. And it was a big deal in the office. Like his door was closed. Nobody made noise. He took a nap for 15 minutes because he found that made him way more efficient. Whatever it is. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to audit that calendar, and you have to be very, very honest with yourself. And you have to ask yourself this question. Derek Maines performs this task. Is that worth $1,000 an hour? And even if I say yes, then I need to go look at Upwork or someplace else. And I need to say, if somebody else did it for me, what would they charge? And you're going to be shocked at how little they're going to charge. You're going to find somebody that's going to do that same thing that's probably better than you at $20 an hour. So now you've just harvested $980 more of capacity. So if I just harvest that hour every week, what can I then use that hour for? Well, the next thing I want to do is after I've done that calendar audit, right? And I find myself a couple of hours, then I want to block those hours out for this process. And that is going to be, I'm going to get into the weeds with my people. I like to start with what's called a value stream. So I want to go to the end. I want to walk to where the product is shipped out, where the delivery to the customer is. And then I want to walk backwards up through that process. And I just want to ask a shit ton of questions. I'm shocked how many times, and I had this happen with a client here about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that we just started looking at the shipping process. And we're like, okay, number one, it's way too complicated. We're using way too many materials. We're using the wrong materials. It was the bottleneck in the system, and we fixed that. Then we go back to the next one and the next one and the next one. So you've got to create the capacity first through this calendar audit process. So let's look at your calendar, Andrew. What do you got going on today?
Well, I already had a bunch of meetings. Then I got to drive all the way out to the West Valley for a client.
What are you going out there for? What are you going out there for?
Like a client for a sales meeting.
So it can't happen in Zoom. Impossible.
It can. It absolutely can. But there's some nuance that
totally makes sense.
He's in a bit of a emotional crisis. So I think the energy of me needs to be there.
Absolutely. So then the question would be, is that a fixed position on your calendar that can never be changed? Or do you have a plan to move that to a virtual meeting?
We normally always do everything virtual.
Okay, cool. So that would be the first type of analyst.
Just an anomaly, right?
Okay, but that would be the first kind of thing to start looking at your calendar. You do a lot of coffees. I don't. You know me. I've been talking about this for a long. I refuse anymore. I'm like, look, you want to have coffee with me? Wonderful. Buy a ticket for the Secret Sauce on June 21st. It'll be this time at Vincent.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow at June 20. Buy a ticket. Spend the money, drive your ass to the location that I'm going to be, and I will happily spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes with you there. But that is just about being efficient, right? Looking at your time. And there are times you need to be in person with a client. I totally agree. Well, I've got two in-persons today, big decisions, right?
Derek, you've had your effect on me in my life because I don't hardly do coffees anymore. I'm doing almost everything virtually. And even those, I've squelched it down to only like a 2-hour period, 1 day a week. So
15-minute meetings, 30 or 4. That's the other thing is like looking at your meetings and saying, do we need the catch up from the weekend? Sometimes you do, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I love the L10 model with EOS. Everybody has 60 seconds to go around the room, give your personal update and your professional update. Why? Because then all the water cooler bullshit goes away. I don't need to have that conversation about, oh, kids and I were in Disney. Sorry, man, 60 seconds, bro. Cut it down. Let's go. Right?
Okay.
We're here for business.
So step one Step one,
calendar audit.
calendar audit. Step two.
Step two then is take the time that you recover from your calendar audit and intentionally invest it back into doing the same thing in the processes in your business. I always like to start at the end. And this is something that, Sam Walton did, Coors from Coors Brewing did. I like to start at the garbage. If it's manufacturing, the first thing I do is go out and look in the dumpster. I mean, I'm like, let's do the calendar audit. And then the CEO's like, great, now I have an extra hour a day. And I'm like, great, let's go get dirty and get in the dumpster. Because at that point, I'm seeing the whole stream of your business and what comes out as not a byproduct. Well, it is a byproduct, but it's a waste product that comes out. And you'd be shocked in manufacturing what you find in that step. You find all these partially made things, materials, tools, and you're like, wait a second, this is a real issue. And then you can follow that back up the stream. If you don't have that, you need to really get out and find out, some information. Maybe you do quarterly business reviews with your customers. Start doing things like that, looking at quarterly business reviews, finding out what your customers' outcomes are. But then I think the next piece in that, and I say that because it's manufacturing a lot of what we work on. So I go look at the garbage. The other thing that you can really do is look at divergent systems. And we talked about this before we turned the camera on. I don't think people understand how much time they spend doing the same shit over and over and over and over and over. One of the perfect examples I used to give a lot, we worked with a financial services company in Scottsdale. This was probably close to 10 years ago now. And we found that not only did their $100,000 underwriters put all the information into their CRM that already had come through a form on their website, then they retyped it all into the CRM, but then they also typed that same information into 13 other spreadsheets in order to produce custom reports for each and every different stakeholder. That is a massive waste of time. 15-20% of these people's time each week was spent just in the data entry. And let me tell you something, when you put the same information into 14 different places, your accuracy sucks. So the information that you're then sending out isn't even conducive. So all we did in that process is took the form, connected it to Salesforce. So now the information's automatically in there, went in and made some custom queries on reports. All of those reports now automatically went out. And we saved about 20% of all the labor for $100,000 people. Now, what does that mean? $20,000 on an employee per year. There was probably 13 or 15 employees in that department. That shit adds up real quick, right? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings by just getting into the detail. And then after that, you just keep digging and digging in. This is a continuous process. And unfortunately, you said it earlier, when you're not paying attention to it, it will start to snowball. So what will happen, and I guarantee you, if I was to go back to that company today, they went from 14 different places they put the data to one. Now, if I was to go back today, I bet you there's 3 or 4. I bet you somebody's like, yeah, but I can't get it exactly like that. So let me just move it over to here. Don't do that shit. Don't let yourself do that shit. So those are the first steps to start.
You would think, I have a client that does custom software development and data integration, like I was telling you earlier.
Yep.
And you would think his phone would be ringing off the hook. And I'm finding that a lot of tech companies, there's so much competition out there that a lot of them are actually not as busy as you would think they were for this kind of work, which is really the work that these companies should be doing to become more efficient. And
Yeah.
I'm finding the reason is, and his name is Chris Boothroyd, and he works with a company called Avatar CTS. And he's like, Andrew, I get my best clients from business process fixers.
It's the only place that they come from. Yeah.
Well, you could get them
We're
from
the ones that figured
website
it out.
developers and others,
Yeah,
but he goes, these are the people I work the closest with, because then they have clients, or these are internal folks that understand the value of efficiency. And
Let
he
me tell you
"That
something,
is
Andrew.
the-
Yep.
That is the only thing I provide a business. People think I'm a tech guy, but he goes, I'm not. I'm about business process efficiency.
Totally.
So
I think there's a couple things to this, and I think there's a reason why we're successful at what we do, and that is that we quantify to the umpteenth degree. I'm gonna read a couple numbers for a board presentation I have tonight. Let me just see if I can pull it up and show you. So, well, I'm not going to show you, but
is that in person or virtual?
This is a in-person one because it's a board meeting,
Okay.
and I got to go play the game, right? But in this instance, I'm telling them I need them to spend $407,000 right now. Write a check. Or I'm sorry, $87,000 I need a check for tonight. I need you to spend another $65,000 this year for this software solution. Wow. Okay, shit, that's a lot, right? $87,000 up front, an extra $5,000 a month forever. Great. What does that get? See, the problem is that's the way that most people look at it. And this is the problem I deal with software companies all the time. They're like, well, here's the cost to do it. I'm like, but how much does it save? And they're like, I don't know what you mean. So in this instance, it's a savings of $407,000 a year for an $87,000 upfront investment, meaning with the recurring and everything, they'll get a 3.1 ROI this year. They'll get a 6.1 ROI every year after that. So I don't even talk about the price. My entire presentation is how we calculated how much money these things are going to save. We're saving $407,000. Isn't that great? Everybody's going, wow, this is incredible, $400,000. And then because it's a board, what am I going to say? So depending upon your percentage of ownership here, if you have 10%, what does that mean? That means an extra $40,000 every year that goes into your pocket, right? So I explain all of these things out to them. And then I say, now to get to that, I need an $87,000 check and it's going to cost you about an extra $5,000 a month. Okay. It's the easiest sale in the world if you do it 100%. The right way. But if you lead with cost, you got to lead with savings.
That most software websites don't have. The one thing I'm always advising them on is, where is the calculator on site that tells me when I buy this, if I plug in certain parameters, it's going to save me X.
Yes. Hey, listen, if I could figure out the model, my good friend Brian Dick, and I was involved with Quest Resource Management Group and Earth 911 and UChange and all those companies that went public in 2014. Brian had a brilliant model in what he did with recycling. He essentially went to large corporations and he said, do you pay to get rid of your garbage? Yeah, of course I did. Great. Well, garbage can be commoditized based upon the different commodities that are in that stream. What if instead of paying to get rid of your garbage, what if I took all your garbage for free? Oh, wow, that would be great. And if I turn it into money, I give you a percentage of it. Everybody's like, yeah, you moron. Of course you can do that. Remember when you're going to save me all this money, then you're going to pay me on the back end. Now, that was that business when we went public in 2014. I think it was $200 million in revenue, all with this fiat risk model. So, if I didn't need the business and if I could figure out a way to get this to work, I would just bet. I'd bet all the time. I would just walk into companies and say, hey, look, I'll take 50% for the next 5 years of what I found. Well, in this instance, I'd get $1 million paycheck today.
Oh, please.
When I present this tonight, right?
So let's review. Step one, calendar audit
to find time so that you can spend time. And I'm going to use a word here, and I want everybody to understand what it is. Defensively. See, your mindset in your business has been offensive. It's been growth, sales, marketing growth. You need to take a defensive position and you need to say, I have $100 coming in from a client. Where does that money go? And how much of that ends up in my pocket? And let me change that math. I don't care about changing the growth math, the lead gen math, the how much business did we do in revenue this month. I care about growing the bottom line. The only way to do that is to analyze your calendar, find a time that you now put a defensive hat on and you go out into the business and you say, where is everything? Where's it going? And if it's manufacturing, again, I start at the garbage. I get out in the garbage and I look at it and I say, what is the waste that comes out of this business?
Okay, that's partly step two though?
That is, I'm merging you into step two. Calendar audit in order to find time to play defensively in your business. First one.
Okay. And then step two.
Step two is to get out there and actually get into the value stream. Start at the end, wherever that end is, and start to look at the negative byproduct that comes out of the business. Because think about this, Andrew. If you ship product and you have scrap pallets sitting out back, well, those pallets cost $40 a piece. So if there's no shit, I've been at places where there's 1,000 pallets sitting there and they're going, oh, we don't understand why we're not making any money. And I'm like, well, there's $40,000 sitting out in the parking lot. I saw it. It was blowing around in the wind. And they're like, where? And we run out there and I'm like, right there, there's a stack of pallets. They're like, oh, those are just old pallets. Yeah, but you're throwing them away. So you gotta look at the end of it, find out what that waste stream is. So that's step 2. Look at the whole thing and try to determine what waste is in it. And waste isn't just garbage. Waste is time. It's waiting. It's people standing around. It's inefficient movement. You've heard my stories about Fitbits. I love putting Fitbits on employees and track them for like a week or two, and then we make change. And they're like, I walk 90% less now since you guys have been here. Yeah. So 90% less paid walking. That's a good thing.
Okay.
So that's 2.
And 3.
Analyze your systems. Find the divergence in your systems and ask yourself a question. Do we really, really need this? Do we have redundancy in it? Do we have multiple points of data entry? And try to break those down. Try to figure out how to get those to integrate together. Every business has to have a single source of truth of their data. If you do not have this, you will not be in business in 24 months, because a single source of data truth, structured data, is the preemptive step in order to bring AI into your business. And the AI revolution is on our doorstep, and 90% of businesses don't have a structured approach to their data. I wrote this the other day. We just came out of the great, the great resignation.
Yes.
We're about to enter the great dissolution, which means there's going to be companies that are sitting there today that are like, I made $1 million last year. You're not going to be there in a year and a half or 2 years. You're going to be pumping gas and working at Target because you haven't thought about your data structure, and your competitors are actively working on creating AI agents and AI applications inside their business that won't increase their efficiency by 10% or 100%, but 1,000%. And they will eat your lunch day in and day out because you did not spend time today getting a single source of truth for your data.
Okay, so inside calendar audit, I'm putting the hat on of this
calendar audit, value stream map.
The small business owner.
Yep.
Calendar audit, I could do myself. I can get somebody in the company help me do that. We could do that with key people.
You need somebody else to look at it and ask you questions, though. You can't do it.
I agree. I'm just pretending I'm a business owner.
Yep.
Step 2 is where all those business processes are figured out, the SOPs that we talked about, standard operating procedures. You talked about looking and, starting with the waste, in the garbage, and then working your way through. And then the final step, and keep in mind, folks, there's a lot within step 2. I mean, we could do many episodes just on what step 2 is. And then step 3 is getting the technology to support what you create in step 2 down to, as Derek says, one system.
Yes.
Which usually are enterprise systems. If you're a small business, you can't really afford an enterprise system, a really small business. So then maybe a CRM that has custom, you get a custom software person to come in and tweak your little CRM for you so that you can get everything in there. It is an investment, but again, that is where everything is headed. So Derek, did I miss
good example? Let me give you a good example right now. So we've recently added 3 people. We've been managing our business by Slack and email and calendar and some Google Drive, right? That's just with 2 people we were able to do that. We went to 5 people. The first project, I'm not able to use the capacity of Tracy Ann yet in my business. Why? Because her job is set up a project management and a CRM system, get them both integrated, single source of truth, create all the structure, all the templates, get our payroll dialed in, because she has the capacity right now. If I was to just throw her into the work, well, then we'd never get this shit done. So somebody has to play that defensive role. Now, I will tell you that I try to work these 3 things almost simultaneously. Once I make a breakthrough and I find some time in the executives' calendars, that second step can be quite simple, Andrew. Sometimes it is literally just walking around the business, management by wandering around. It is just going out and looking and seeing what's being done, because you will find things that you'll go, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And then just asking questions, sitting down with people. Hey, tell me how do we do it this way? Was this the way we were trained on it? Just do those kind of things. Then you can move to that systems piece. This is a process of continuous improvement. I don't want anybody to think you have to eat the whole elephant day one, because you don't. Just find a couple hours, spend those couple hours analyzing the business under a microscope, find more hours from more people, dedicate them to doing that, find more hours from those people to do it, and then start to look at the systems and find even more hours. This is about recapturing time. It is about creating a time machine that captures time in your organization, time that you can then dedicate to other things. Or if you're interested in cost savings, listen, we all have high churn and turnover. So when somebody leaves the company now, you have to look at it and go, do I really need, no, don't need them anymore. Just, I have a deal right now where we're going from 13 people in a department. We are not replacing a single soul. We're adding new tasks to those people, but we assume within 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to run the department with 3 people. That's a huge cost savings. Or I can get higher value people. Instead of $40,000 people, I can hire $80,000 people who are much better at those jobs and tasks. So that's the key. That's the 3 steps to get started.
So realistically, that may sound a little overwhelming for some people. Of course, there are many consultants that do that besides Derek and myself.
Yeah, don't call me. I don't want your business.
Besides Derek,
we're starting to do some workshops.
I don't do that stuff. I do the behavioral change to make that stuff work. Because ultimately it has to become a habit, and people have to change their habits to do those different things that a person like the process fixer will fix. So my recommendation to you all is find somebody that can do it. If you need a recommendation, Derek is apparently getting a little too busy. If you need a recommendation,
I got people I can send you to.
You could always
I've got other consultants.
For me, we're happy to steer you in the right direction. But now's the time, folks, where you have to do this.
It's life and death. It really is. It's life and death for your business.
Fast now. It is a new age, a new reality. You can do things the same old, but you're just going to get washed up on the shore. And I don't think you want to do that. So
nobody does.
So that's all we got.
Was fun. That was fun. I like it. I always like it. And listen, I mean, really think this through, because it is important to your business right now. And listen, I get it. This is not the conversation that everybody has all the time where they're like, oh, everybody wants to think about growth and I have to increase my exposure. I had a conversation with my web team yesterday, and I think they were sort of shocked. And I was like, look, can we just take it down? And they were like, well, what do you mean? How will people find us? I'm like, I don't want anybody finding us no more. Like, I got, I know that's not the right approach.
Good problems.
But it is true. It's, there is a limitation to the system, and you want to build a business that it can thrive, survive, and is sustainable into the future. And the way to do that is to be self-reflective. You've got to get inside the business and really look at what's happening and figure this shit out. So, awesome. Hey, everybody, until next time, I'm gonna play our outro music again, just because it's such a cool rap, and we can dance our way out of this thing, Andrew.
Tune in again.
We're doing this thing, so just tune in, and we're gonna start doing it live too. All right. Let's see here. Thank you. Okay, Andrew.